There is no doubt that this company is the most famous sports car manufacturer in the world. So why don't we stop this charade? You can see it's Ferrari. I'm going to close my fat Mancunian mouth while you take a look at these. Ferrari were established in 1929 by the now legendary Enzo Ferrari. His aim at the start was simple: arrange races and support the Alfa Romeo racing team. Surprising to many, however, is that he didn't produce his first car until 1947, the 125. Sometimes life can be a strange thing, eh? One minute in the middle of the night you're wiping the baby sick from your pillow, the next you're getting to mess around with a whole bunch of Ferraris. Absolutely fantastic. The 246 Dino is one of the most famous and distinctive cars in the world ever, period. Even with its somewhat dubious styling by modern standards at least. For a start, just look at the front of the car. Looks like a frog, albeit a very powerful and cute frog. As we move around, the back of the car somehow manages to incorporate sexy curves around the wheel arches and sharp, aggressive lines leading up the roof. It's a strange mix that somehow works to create a car that can still be called sexy yet look so industrious. Now, if you're like me, the prospect of looking at a car's engine is as dull as dishwater, and that's whilst watching Pop Idol. And visually, this engine isn't much to look at by modern standards. Its significance is historic. It's a beautifully clean, as you can see, 2.5 litre V6 mid-mounted transverse engine. Sitting just in front of the back wheels, it gives the car perfect balance. Power, well, that was impressive too, as you can imagine. Only 195 brake horsepower, but it peaked at 7,500 revs, giving the car a top speed of 152 miles per hour. It makes a beautiful high-pitched note. Now the moment I've all been waiting for. Ever since I became aware of cars probably 25 years ago, I've always wanted to drive the Ferrari Dino. God bless him. One of the first things you realise when you get into this car is that it is very old. The brakes aren't up to much, the steering is, whilst good at speed, wallowy, I would say. And the gearbox is, well, it needs work. You need to be really aware of what gear it's in, even though there's nothing wrong with it, and I'm sure in its day it was great compared to the experience, obviously, of driving modern Ferraris. It can be hard work. Now, the emergence of the Dino was emotionally a mixed affair because even though they'd produced a beautiful, stunning sports car, it was tinged with tragedy too because Enzo Ferrari's son, Dino, lost his battle with cancer in his early 20s. And after that, the 246 simply became known as Dino. Acceleration on this car for its age is really phenomenal. You have to work hard at it. But this is a dream fulfilled. I feel like Tony Curtis in The Persuaders. Anyone remember that title sequence chasing Roger Moore in the Aston Martin DBS? Nobody? Go and watch Pop Idol, a lot of you. There are very few things, or indeed people, as iconic as a Ferrari Dino. Growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, pictures on the wall alongside Charlie's Angels and the Wombles, a picture of a Dino. All right, it made for some very interesting dreams involving Uncle Bulgaria and Farrah Fawcett, but that's a different matter. No, this Dino is the stuff that dreams are made of. We're going to jump ahead just a little now because over the next 10, 15 years, Ferrari continued to produce highly desirable exotica cars like the Testarossa, the GTO, the 308, until in 1985 they launched this, the 328. Unveiled at the Frankfurt show, the 328 wasn't so much a completely new design, more of a significant facelift of the 10-year-old 308. Visually, the biggest changes to the Pininfarina design were around the lower half of the car. The prominent changes were to the front, while on the inside the changes were much more noticeable as it benefited from a complete makeover. Powering the car, as you can possibly work out from the name 328, was a 3.2 litre V8 unit. Performance, well, that was more than respectable. 164 miles per hour and 0 to 60 in about 5.4. It'd be rude not to. People often mistake this Ferrari for the one that Magnum drove in his eponymous titled series, Magnum. But it isn't. That was the 308. This is the altogether more refined 328. And actually, once you get to the car, you do wonder how Magnum, Tom Selleck, would have got his moustache in here, let alone his huge frame. But it really isn't very practical. The gearbox has to warm up. You have to look where you're putting the lever as you're changing gear. And as for three-point turns and manoeuvring, well, forget it. But hey, I ain't grumbling. Once I'd put my oiled frame into the seat as well, there is a lack of steering room around my legs, and the dash is annoyingly close to the steering wheel. So as you are doing quick steering maneuvers, you sometimes get your hands caught on the dash. Slightly irritating. And also, once I've reclined my seat fully so I can get my head in, and you can see there's no room there, it means that the gear lever is just out of reach, and in second and fourth gears, I really have to sort of lean into it, but it's not that much of a problem. I'll just grow my arms, carry some heavy shopping, be all right. During its 4-year life, over 7,500 328s were built, and the GTS version became one of the most popular Ferraris of all time. And even at the end of production, the styling cues continued in cars like the 348 and the 355. But that popularity means that residual values are still high.